Hi guys, welcome back with another video. In today's drama, these are 5 K-dramas of impossible love that will break your heart. The story begins with Soo Yoon getting off the school bus. Immediately, many students start talking about her beauty, elegance, and confident walk. Among them, there is one who looks at her with particular interest. Jung, the most popular boy in the entire school, admired by both teachers and students for his intelligence, looks, and athletic skills. When their eyes meet, Jung smiles subtly, but Soo Yoon simply glances at him and keeps walking, as if he were just another student. This reaction surprises Chung, who is used to girls blushing or greeting him enthusiastically. Later, in the classroom, the teacher announces that a new student will be joining them, Soo Yoon. The moment she enters, the entire class falls silent. Her presence is so striking that even the teacher seems slightly distracted. When she introduces herself, she speaks calmly and politely, but without unnecessary smiles. Some of the girls start whispering, clearly feeling threatened by her charm, while others just admire her. Jung, sitting in the back, watches her with growing curiosity. During break time, several boys try to approach Soo Yoon, offering to show her around the school. She thanks them, but politely declines, saying she prefers to explore on her own. When she heads toward the library, she finds Jung already there, reading a book. He closes it, stands up, and walks toward her. With a confident smile, he says, "You're Soo Yoon, right?" "I'm Jung. People say I'm the most handsome guy here, but I think you might just steal that title from me." Soo Yoon looks at him for a moment and then responds, "Flattery doesn't work on me." Without another word, she turns and walks away, leaving Chung frozen in place, both surprised and intrigued. From that day on, Jung becomes determined to get her attention. He starts sitting closer to her in class, finding excuses to talk to her, and even volunteering to be her partner for school projects. But Soo Yoon remains distant, always polite, but never letting him get too close. One afternoon, during physical education class, the students are divided into teams for a basketball match. Jung takes the opportunity to impress Soo Yoon with his skills. Every time he scores, he glances at her to see if she's watching, but she seems more interested in reading a book on the bleachers than in the game. When the match ends, Jung walks up to her, slightly sweaty but smiling. "Did you see my winning shot?" he asks. Soo Yoon closes her book and replies calmly, "I saw it. But I also saw you missed 3 before that." Then she gets up and leaves, once again leaving him speechless. Chung's friends start teasing him, saying it's the first time they've seen a girl reject him so openly. Instead of being discouraged, this only makes him more determined to win her over. Over the next few days, Jung begins to investigate more about Soo Yoon. He finds out she recently transferred from another prestigious school and that her academic record is outstanding. He also hears rumors that she comes from a wealthy family, but Soo never talks about her personal life. One day, while they are assigned as lab partners in chemistry class, Chung tries a different approach. "You're good at everything, aren't you?" he says, watching her mix the chemicals. Soo glances at him and replies, "I'm just focused." "You should try it." Her cold yet elegant demeanor fascinates him even more. Chung realizes that unlike other girls, Soo Yoon doesn't care about his popularity, his wealth, or his looks, and that's exactly what makes her stand out in his eyes. One rainy afternoon, classes are dismissed early. Most students run to avoid getting wet, but Soo Yoon calmly opens her umbrella and walks toward the school gate. Jung, noticing her from a distance, quickly catches up to her. "You know, Walking alone on a rainy day looks pretty, but it's also kind of sad, he says with a grin. Sue replies without looking at him. Then don't look. Chung laughs softly. You really don't make things easy for people, do you? They walk together in silence for a few steps until a group of boys from another class passes by and tries to flirt with Sue. Chung steps forward, blocking their way, and tells them to leave. The boys hesitate, but eventually walk off, muttering under their breath. You didn't have to do that, Sue says. I know, Chung answers, but I wanted to. Sue doesn't respond. She simply keeps walking until they reach the main road, where she gets into a black car that has been waiting for her. Chung watches as the driver opens the door for her and bows slightly. This confirms what he suspected. Sue comes from a wealthy family. From that day on, Chung becomes even more curious about her life outside school. He starts noticing the small details, the discreet yet expensive watch she wears, the way she carries herself, the books she reads in their original language. One evening, at the school library, Chung finally decides to ask directly. Why did you transfer here, Su Yunyin? She looks at him for a long moment before answering. Let's just say I wanted a change. But a change doesn't mean I want distractions. And with that, she goes back to reading, leaving Chung once again both frustrated and intrigued. A week later, the school hosts a cultural festival where students set up booths, performances, and exhibitions. Su Yunyin is assigned to help with the literature club's poetry reading. She dresses in a simple yet elegant white dress, her hair tied back, attracting the attention of everyone present. When it's her turn to read, her voice is calm and clear, carrying a certain grace that makes the entire audience fall silent. Chung Zhang, who is in charge of the basketball club's booth, abandons his post just to watch her. After the reading, Chung approaches her with a cup of hot tea. You were incredible up there, he says sincerely. Sue takes the cup, gives him a brief nod, and says, Thank you. It's the first time she's thanked him for anything, and Chung notices it immediately. Encouraged, he walks with her for the rest of the festival. They stop at various booths, and although Sue maintains her usual composure, Chung catches small hints of amusement in her eyes when she sees something she likes. Later that afternoon, they pass by the basketball court, where some students are playing a friendly match. The boys challenge Chung to join, and he accepts, asking Sue to wait for him. While she watches, one of the opposing players accidentally collides with Chung, causing him to fall and scrape his arm. Sue instinctively takes a step forward, concerned, but quickly composes herself when she sees Chung get up and keep playing. After the game, Chung walks back to her, slightly out of breath but smiling. Were you worried about me? He teases. Sue looks away. You play too recklessly. Chung grins. I'll take that as a yes. As the weeks pass, Chung Zhang and Su Yunyin begin to spend more time together, though Sue still maintains a certain distance. Chung, however, is patient and never pushes her too far. One afternoon, after school, Chung finds Sue in the music room playing the piano. The melody is soft but carries a deep sense of longing. He listens quietly until she notices his presence. How long have you been standing there? She asks. Long enough to know you play beautifully, Chung replies, walking closer. Sue closes the piano lid. It's just a hobby. Hobbies can say a lot about a person, Chung says, sitting on the bench next to her. Like, you seem like someone who hides a lot behind a calm expression. Sue gives him a faint smile. And you seem like someone who talks too much. They both laugh softly, and for the first time, the air between them feels lighter. A few days later, a rumor spreads through the school that Chungjang has been seen rejecting several girls who confess to him. Some say it's because he already likes someone. Sue overhears this but doesn't comment. That same week, Chung officially asks Sue to attend the upcoming school dance with him. She hesitates, clearly conflicted, but finally says, "I'll think about it." On the night of the dance, Sue arrives wearing a navy blue gown that draws every eye in the room. Chung, waiting at the entrance in a tailored suit, can't hide his admiration when he sees her. "You came," he says with a bright smile. "I said I'd think about it. I didn't say no," Sue replies. They dance together, and although Sue keeps her usual composed demeanor, there are moments when she allows herself to smile genuinely at Chung's clumsy but earnest moves. After the dance, Chungjang walks Su Yunyin home. The streets are quiet, lit only by the soft glow of the street lamps. "Did you have a good time?" Chung asks. Sue hesitates for a moment before answering, "Yes. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be." Chung laughs. "I'll take that as the highest compliment you've given me so far." When they reach her house, Sue turns to him and says, "Good night, Chungjang." It's the first time she's addressed him by his full name, and it leaves him smiling even after she disappears inside. In the following days, Chung continues to court her in his own way, walking her to class, sharing books he thinks she might like, and occasionally surprising her with small gestures, like her favorite tea or a quiet spot in the library he's reserved just for the two of them. Eventually, Sue begins to open up more. She reveals that she transferred schools because of family matters and that she prefers to keep her personal life private to avoid unnecessary gossip. Chung listens without pressing her for more details, happy just to be someone she trusts enough to share with. One afternoon, as they're leaving school together, Chung stops and looks at her seriously. "Su Yunyin, I like you. Not because you're beautiful or smart, though you are, but because you make me want to be better." Sue studies him for a moment, her usual guarded expression softening. "You've been persistent. I'll give you that." "Does that mean—" Chung begins. Sue gives him a small, almost teasing smile. "It means you can keep walking me home." From that day on, their relationship slowly grows, built on mutual respect, subtle smiles, and the quiet understanding that sometimes love doesn't need grand declarations. It just needs two people willing to take each step together. To give us a bit of context, the story revolves around Hinata Hanazawa, an ordinary student who stands out and takes her studies very seriously as she strives to be good at everything she does. This is something we see not only at school but also at home, because her love for her family is as great as her devotion to her studies. On top of that, Hinata has two best friends, Hikari and Akira. The latter has been in love with her since childhood, but our girl has never noticed. Hinata tells us a bit about her daily routine. Since her parents own a popular restaurant, they are always working tirelessly to please all their customers, which means our protagonist often finds herself taking care of her little sister, waking her up in the morning, making her breakfast, and even walking her to school. Yes, Hinata is everything good in the world. But one night, as her little sister, who loves romantic movies and fairy tales, was expecting a bedtime story, Hinata told her the classic tale of Cinderella. However, her sister didn't pay attention and instead pointed to the TV, showing that she had just seen a real-life prince charming. Upon hearing this, Hinata blushed and experienced love at first sight with the leading man in the movie, Ayase Kaide, a famous actor and former member of a well-known K-pop band. Kaide's good looks, charm, and talent have earned him a huge following, especially among teenage girls who adore him. This was something Hikari had mentioned to Hinata before, but since she was always buried in her studies, she didn't even know Kaide existed until now, when she saw him on TV and started dreaming about having a prince charming like him. As fate would have it, that same night, Hinata received a call from Hikari, who told her that their school had been chosen as the filming location for Kaide's new movie. Even better, they were looking for extras, and all the students were eligible to participate. Hearing this, Hinata jumped for joy and eagerly told Hikari to add her name to the list. The next day, Hinata, Hikari, and the other students lined up to start filming. They were instructed to act like regular students working in a laboratory. While Hikari was ecstatic to meet Kaide, Hinata tried to keep her emotions in check. But when it was their turn to enter the lab, Hinata, distracted, accidentally bumped into Kaide, leaving her completely stunned. He apologized and went on with the shoot, while she remained frozen in shock. To top it off, Kaide flashed a charming smile, making her knees go weak. After filming, the girls chatted about Kaide. Hikari asked if Hinata had seen him up close, but she played it cool, saying she hadn't even looked at him. Hikari told her to make sure she did next time and left. Soon after, Hinata saw an empty can on the ground and approached to throw it away, only to spot Kaide watching the school cheerleaders. That's when she discovered his less than chivalrous side. As she tried to leave, she tripped, unintentionally revealing her backside. Kaide noticed and, with interest, remarked, "It's 86. Embarrassed, she ran off. Later at home, she measured herself and found that Kaide had been right. She began wondering what kind of Prince Charming he really was. That afternoon, Hinata went to the mall to try and win a plush toy for her sister, but failed repeatedly. On her last try, a guy appeared behind her, giving her tips. Thanks to his help, she succeeded, only to turn around and find it was Kaide. Shocked, she blurted out his name, which drew the attention of nearby fans. Kaide quickly grabbed her hand and led her outside. Once in a safe spot, she asked what he was doing at the mall. He said he had to film later, but needed some motivation. She smiled and promised not to tell anyone about his fascination with backsides. Before leaving, he noticed her broken shoe and smiled. That evening, she made it to her movie on time, still thinking about him. To her surprise, Kaide showed up to watch the same film. Hinata mentioned she loved romantic movies, especially Cinderella. Afterward, Kaide offered her his shoes. Having noticed hers were broken, she initially refused, but eventually accepted. The next day at school, chaos erupted in the hallways. Kaide had arrived. Ignoring the screaming fans, he walked straight to Hinata and handed her a new pair of shoes, kneeling to put them on her and saying it was like the fairy tale she had dreamed of. Later, outside the school, she tried to return the shoes from before, but he instead wrote his phone number on her hand, telling her to call so he could learn her name. That night, she called, but the number was out of service. Meanwhile, Kaide was having dinner with his ex-girlfriend Yu, also a famous actress. They were on good terms, soon to star together in a romantic movie. Hinata, on the other hand, was fuming, scrubbing the false number off her wrist. While Kaide was dining with Yu, Hinata was furious, washing the fake number off her wrist and thinking he was just playing with her feelings. Back in Kaide's van on the way to a shoot, his manager warned him to think twice before doing anything in public, reminding him that as an actor, public image is everything and bad press could jeopardize his career. Kaide brushed him off, suddenly spotting Hinata walking down the street. Without hesitation, he jumped out of the van and caught up to her, asking why she hadn't called him. She explained that she had, showing her call history. Realizing he had given her his old number, Kaide reached for her phone to give her the current one, but Hinata, heartbroken, snatched her phone back and told him not to play with her emotions, admitting she used to like him but wasn't interested anymore. As she turned to leave, Kaide grabbed her arm, saying it was good to have expectations. Then, without warning, he kissed her through his mask. Hinata stood frozen, shocked, as Kaide confessed he had wanted to know her name from the moment they met. It had been love at first sight. Overwhelmed, Hinata finally told him her name. The next day, she carefully chose an outfit. She had a date with Kaide, but Akira, holding a bouquet of flowers, saw her excitement and couldn't understand what was happening. When Kaide's van arrived, Hinata got in, curious about where they were going. Kaide told her to wait and see. He took her to his luxurious apartment. Hinata was impressed by the size, and Kaide admitted he'd never brought a girl home before. They spent the afternoon talking, looking at pictures from his former band, and having lunch. Later, Kaide suggested watching a movie. Pretending to fall asleep, he caught Hinata off guard when she shyly tried to touch him, only for him to suddenly turn playful and flirtatious, showing his more daring side. Just as things were heating up, his manager barged in, angrily demanding to know who she was. To Hinata's shock, Kaide introduced her as his girlfriend. The manager's jaw dropped when he learned she was 16, scolding Kaide for risking his career, but Kaide dismissed his warnings. The next day, Hinata was over the moon, daydreaming about being his girlfriend. Her joy didn't last. Kaida texted saying he'd be busy filming and couldn't see her for a while. With free time, Hinata helped Akira at his father's flower shop. Out of nowhere, Akira confessed his love and joked about marrying her. She brushed it off. Soon after, she was sent to deliver flowers to a film studio, only to see Kaide kissing Yu. Though it was part of a movie scene, Hinata was devastated. Kaida noticed her leaving and chased after her, assuring her not to worry about the film. She promised not to interfere with his work. As a reward for her understanding, Kaida playfully nibbled her nose and told her no other guy was allowed near her. However, Yu witnessed this and didn't seem happy. Days later, Kaide invited Hinata on another date, but she politely refused. It was Akira's birthday, and they were celebrating at her house. Kaide said he had a plan. That night, much to everyone's shock, Kaide showed up at the party and announced they were dating. Hikari was thrilled, but Akira was crushed. Alone with Kaide later, Akira warned him not to toy with Hinata's feelings. Kaide assured him he was serious. Akira declared he wouldn't give up. The next day, Hinata visited Kaide's apartment. Upon entering, she found him half-dressed. Teasing her, he handed her a key to his place, telling her to come anytime she felt lonely. Her happiness was immeasurable. But a few days later, while dining alone, Kaide saw members of his old band who coldly ignored him. That night, he remembered the good times, but also how his decision to quit the band for acting had hurt them. Back at school, Hinata overheard girls gossiping about how Kaide would surely get back together with Yu. Feeling insecure, she admitted to a friend that she stood no chance against someone like Yu, beautiful and glamorous. Still, Hinata decided to fight for her love. When she went to visit Kaide's apartment, she noticed a pair of high heels. Moments later, her heart shattered. She ran out, Kaide chasing after her. Hinata accused him of playing with her feelings and refused to listen. Heartbroken, she stayed in bed until Akira visited, hugging her from behind and advising her to forget Kaide. He then confessed his own feelings, leaving her speechless. Days later, Hinata ran into Yu, who asked her to stop seeing Kaide because she wanted him back. Hinata reluctantly agreed, believing she wasn't a match for Yu. But when Yu realized Hinata's feelings were genuine, she told her the truth. Kaide had rejected her, and the kiss Hinata saw was one-sided. Yu decided to step aside and let their love continue. That night, Kaide visited Hinata, apologizing and confessing he had fallen more in love with her every day. Since he couldn't be seen in public with someone due to his status, he rented out an entire amusement park for the two of them. They rode roller coasters, carousel horses, and shared ice cream. Before leaving, Kaide gave her a necklace with a tiny glass slipper charm, saying he was happy to be her boyfriend. Their love grew stronger with time. But trouble came when the media reported Kaide was dating a high school girl. Even with her face blurred, his career was at risk. On his way to Hinata's house with a birthday gift, his manager called to break the news. Surrounded by reporters, Kaide stayed silent, which only fueled the scandal. The next morning, Kaide's manager visited Hinata, revealing the real reason Kaide left his band. It wasn't for acting, but because of a throat condition that required surgery, making it impossible for him to continue singing. The manager promised to support Kaide's dreams, but Hinata, feeling guilty for the trouble she'd caused, decided to end things. Meeting Kaide, she thanked him for being her first love, but said it was time to end their little fairy tale, on her birthday no less. Days later, Kaide held a press conference, admitting he had dated a high school girl, but vowing it would never happen again. He would focus solely on his career. Hearing this, Hinata's heart shattered. She went to the rooftop to be alone, where Akira found her, hugging her from behind and offering comfort. 3 years later, Kaide won an international award, one of the few Japanese actors to achieve such success. Among his gifts, his manager found a letter from Akira. In it, Akira revealed that, even after they broke up, Hinata couldn't stop watching Kaide's movies and seeing him everywhere. Akira admitted he wasn't the right person for her. Kaide was. Along with the letter was a movie ticket for her favorite film. Kaide rushed to the cinema but arrived too late. Disappointed, he headed home, only to find Hinata coming down the stairs. Shocked to see each other after 3 years, Kaide told her he had promised himself that when he became a man worthy of her love, he would return to find her. He handed her a birthday gift, a pair of sparkling shoes, symbolizing his wish for them to walk into a beautiful future together. Hinata accepted. The story begins in a classroom where a young teacher named Chen Yang is giving her English lessons and explaining the importance of the language. She notices that the students seem to be paying attention, except for a girl who looks distressed and as if she has a lot on her mind. Seeing this, Chen senses that something is wrong and suddenly recalls her own past. We go back to 2011 in the city of Anqiao, where Chen is still a high school student. She is considered one of the top students in her class, always achieving the highest grades. With exams approaching, Chen usually puts on her headphones to block out distractions and concentrate fully on her studies. One day, however, she is startled by the loud noise of her classmates running through the halls. Curious, she decides to go see what's going on, and that's when she is shocked to witness something terrible. A girl has decided to take her own life. But this girl is not just any student. She is Hu Xiaodie, Chen's only friend. At that moment, many students gather around Hu, but instead of helping her or calling for an ambulance, most of them take out their phones to photograph her body and post the images online. Chen, horrified by the scene, slowly approaches and covers her friend's body with her own coat in front of everyone. The other students continue to take photos and whisper, implying that many of them know the reason for Hu's action. But apparently, none have the courage to say it aloud. The next day during class, Chen is called to the principal's office. There, 2 detectives are waiting to question her. They ask how close she was to Hu Xiaodi and whether they were friends. To their surprise, Chen denies that they were friends, claiming that she only covered Hu's face so that people would stop taking pictures. It's clear that Chen is hiding something about why Hu took her own life, but she chooses not to tell the detectives. When Chen returns to the classroom, she finds that someone has stained her chair with red ink. We then learn that Hu suffered the same bullying tactic before her death. The teacher intervenes, making it clear that such behavior is unacceptable, and after class, he quietly tells Chen not to hesitate to tell him if something like that happens again. Later, in the cafeteria, a troublesome girl named Wei Lei and her friends approach Chen, asking her to help them study for the upcoming exams. Chen refuses, saying she has no time, so Wei takes out her phone and starts taking pictures of Chen, just as she used to do with Hu. Here it's revealed that these girls were the ones who constantly bullied Hu, driving her to her tragic end. Chen knows all this, but she is too afraid to tell the police. On her way home, Wei and her gang corner her again, this time because she spoke to the police. Despite their taunts, Chen says nothing and walks away in silence. When she gets home, we see that Chen barely spends time with her mother, who sells illicit goods for a living. Her mother, wanting to protect her daughter's education, tries to keep her distance so as not to cause problems for her. Before going to bed, she promises Chen that she will soon buy a house so they can live peacefully. The next afternoon, Chen is walking through the streets when she sees a group of thugs surrounding and beating up a boy. She quickly takes out her phone to call the police, but one of the gang members notices her, snatches her phone from her hands, smashes it on the ground, and then takes the little money she had, just 50 yuan. They mock her, and, to humiliate her further, the gang leader orders her to kiss the boy they were beating. Faced with no choice, Chen hesitates for a moment, and then leans forward to kiss him. The boy's name is Xiao Bei. Xiao doesn't seem particularly upset about the beating, but what angers him is that they humiliated Chen. Without a second thought, he retaliates and hits the gang leader, forcing the others to back off. The thugs eventually leave. Later, Xiao finds Chen again and thanks her for stepping in. He asks how much money they took from her, and when she tells him 50 yuan, he says he can't pay her back right now, but offers to fix her phone instead. They go to a small cell phone repair shop, where Xiao repairs it himself with impressive skill. Before leaving, he tells her that from now on he'll be her bodyguard, but that it will cost her a small fee. Chen refuses, but Xiao still begins to follow her around, seemingly determined to keep his word. When Chen returns home, she finds her front door covered with posters accusing her mother of owing large debts. The rumors spread quickly at school, and the next day, everyone mocks her and whispers behind her back. Feeling overwhelmed, Chen leaves school early and wanders the streets until she runs into Xiao again. Seeing her upset, Xiao takes her to his humble home under a bridge. There, he cooks noodles for her and for the first time in a long while, Chen feels comfortable enough to relax. But their conversation takes a turn when Chen, perhaps to mask her vulnerability, insults Xiao by saying he has no qualities she could ever like. Xiao, offended, tells her that he was only trying to be polite and that he won't bother her anymore. That night, Chen cries alone in her room, realizing that the only person who had shown her kindness is now hurt because of her words. The next day during gym class, no one wants to play volleyball with her except Wei Lei, who uses the opportunity to provoke her. Chen, frustrated, throws the ball at her and warns her to stop. Later, as Chen is leaving school, Wei pushes her down the stairs. Luckily, Chen is not seriously injured, but she's clearly had enough. Remembering Hu Xiaodi, she decides it's time to tell the truth. Chen goes to the police and speaks to Inspector Zheng Yi, telling him everything about the bullying. The police summon Wei and her friends for questioning, but without solid evidence, they are released. However, the school still decides to suspend them for the remainder of the year. That night, Inspector Zheng offers to drive Chen home. During the ride, he apologizes for not being able to punish the bullies more severely and advises her to be careful. A few days later, Wei Lei and her gang wait for Chen outside her home. When Chen sees them, she quickly hides inside a dumpster until they leave. Once the coast is clear, she runs straight to Xiaobei's place and begs him to help protect her. From that moment on, Xiao begins escorting her to and from school every day. Little by little, Chen starts spending more time at Xiao's home. One evening she notices he comes back badly beaten. Concerned, she asks what happened, and Xiao decides to open up about his past. He tells her that when he was 13, his father abandoned him, and later, his mother left to be with another man. Since then, he has been living on his own. Hearing this, Chen realizes she is the first person to genuinely care about him in a long time. Over time, their bond becomes stronger. Chen begins to feel she can rely on him. But one afternoon, trouble comes again. Xiao is suddenly arrested by the police, suspected of being involved in a robbery. That same night, while Chen is alone, Wei Lei and her gang ambush her. They beat her, cut her hair, and forcibly strip part of her clothing, while another girl films everything on her phone. Before the situation gets worse, a neighbor appears and scares them off. The next day, Chen sees Xiao again. When he notices her hair has been cut unevenly, he shaves his own head so that she won't feel ashamed or alone. Days later, the time for the final exams arrives, but the peace is short-lived. News spreads that a body has been found after a landslide. It's Wei Lei. A flashback reveals what really happened. A few days earlier, Wei had approached Chen and unexpectedly apologized for everything she had done to her. She even offered her money in exchange for Chen not telling the police the truth about the bullying. At first, Chen seemed willing to forgive her, but when Wei insulted her mother, Chen's anger got the better of her. In a moment of blind rage, she pushed Wei down a staircase. Wei's head hit the ground hard, and she died instantly. Panicked, Chen told Xiao what happened. Without hesitation, Xiao told her he would take care of everything, meaning he would dispose of the body himself. After the landslide exposes Wei Lei's body, the police investigate and soon find the vehicle Xiao used to transport it. Wei's friends quickly point the finger at Chen, accusing her of being involved. Chen is brought in for questioning. During the interrogation, she denies having anything to do with Wei's death and claims she doesn't even know Xiaobei. Due to lack of solid evidence, Chen is eventually released, but Xiao is charged and imprisoned. A few days later, Inspector Zheng visits Chen at school. He congratulates her on achieving one of the highest grades in the exams, but then, with a serious look, tells her that Xiao has been sentenced to the death penalty. Shocked and horrified, Chen protests, but Zheng then admits it was a lie. His intention was to push her into confessing the truth. Sometime later, Chen decides to visit Xiao in prison. Their meeting is short, but deeply emotional. They exchange no words, only looks filled with pain and unspoken feelings, before the guards take them away to different detention centers. Back in the present day, we return to the opening scene. Chen is teaching English to her students. She notices a shy, withdrawn girl in her class, and in her, Chen sees a reflection of her own younger self. When class ends, Chen offers to walk the girl home, sensing that she too is a victim of bullying. As they walk, we see Xiaobei in the distance, quietly following them, still watching over her.
Minato is a 20-year-old girl living with her parents and stepbrother. Although they live together, she doesn't get along with him due to his nonchalant and cold behavior. During their high school days, she often gets bullied by girls for being his stepsister and for having the opportunity to live with him. Since they're not related by blood, every girl saw her as a threat, so she hated him for making her high school life miserable. While she struggled to get a boyfriend, he got himself a new girlfriend every week. While narrating her past ordeal to her best friend, she laments on how she'll have to go to the same college as him. Her friend consoles her and then begs her to take on a part-time gig as a model. Amidst her protest, the friend hands over a high school uniform and a blonde wig, and persuades her to pose in the middle of the street for a photo shoot. After a few snaps, the friend suddenly leaves to get some accessories for the photo shoot. Minato immediately panics and tries to go with her, but suddenly bumps into the shoulders of her stepbrother. The impact causes her to drop to the floor without looking at his face. He immediately recognizes her as his stepsister, but to save herself from looking like a weird cosplayer, she quickly denies it, and even accuses him of trying to act familiar with a stranger on first meeting. He falls for this, and assumes she's a stranger who looks like his sister. Thinking she's someone else, he takes a photo of her, and asks for her phone number in order to ask her out. She lies that she doesn't have a phone since her parents are strict. So he pens down his number on a piece of paper and begs her to contact him when she can. Later that day, during a family dinner, her mother brings up the part-time modeling job, but she immediately cuts off the discussion by spilling food on the dining table. While diligently cleaning the stain, her parents comment on her extreme germophobia and wonder how her stepbrother would cope with living in college with her. He coldly responds that he would have to deal with it since it's her bad habit. Shocked at his response, she inwardly complained that his problematic habits were more than hers. Unable to forgive his comment, she decides to play a huge prank on him. She quickly searches through the wastebin for his phone number, and then visits a nearby phone booth to give him a call. He spaces out upon hearing her voice on the phone call, but eventually agrees to meet her by 5 p.m. later in the week. To pull off the prank, Minato wears a blonde wig and employs the help of her friend to do her makeup. She plans to reveal her real identity upon meeting him in order to give him a jump scare. Upon getting to the agreed location, she hides behind a pool and decides to punish him by keeping him waiting for her. As she watches him from afar, a beautiful woman approaches and asks him out on a date, but he declines and continues to wait. An hour passes by and more girls approach him, but he declines their request. Seeing this, Minato decides to end the prank and confess her real identity to him. She runs over and apologizes for being late, but to her shock, he comforts her by lying that he had also been late. Speechless at his lie, she agrees to go to a cafe with him. There, as she struggles on how to break the truth to him, he suddenly pulls out a new phone from his bag and gives it to her as a gift. Shocked at his kindness, she tries to reject it, but he insists on giving it to her. When he asks for her name, she gives him her best friend's name, Mina Noguchi. After the date, she narrates everything to her best friend, who's shocked that her nonchalant stepbrother is actually a simp for women. With this in mind, the friend immediately gets an idea on how to take revenge on her brother for making her high school life miserable. Together, they devise a plan to make him fall madly in love with her, and once he's deep in love, she'll break up with him to make him heartbroken. So one day, during a karaoke date, he asks her to be his girlfriend, but she agrees on the condition that he breaks up with all the flings and hookups in his life. Thinking he won't agree, she gets shocked to see him returning home each day with scars and wounds from beatings and fights from breaking up with his hookups. After breaking up with all of them, he invites her again for a date and officially asks her out to be his girlfriend. Seeing the desperate look in his eyes, she accepts his request, but panics afterwards with her best friend at the college cafeteria. As they discuss how to deal with the issue, he walks past them, but upon seeing his stepsister, he chooses to sit far away from her. She ignores him as well, but at that moment, a group of classmates swarms over and invites her to a class drinking party. There, she comes across an old classmate and immediately connects with him. That night, he escorts her home and asks her out on a second date. She agrees to his request, but suddenly, her stepbrother comes out of nowhere to interrupt. As she enters the house, he asks if the stranger was her boyfriend, but she's shocked at his sudden curiosity and refuses to answer. Later that night, he calls her on the phone he had gifted to her. so she continues her pretense and agrees to meet him the next day. He takes her to an aquarium, and as they discuss the sea creatures, she discovers a new side to her brother and wonders why he doesn't show off his talkative and nice side. Later during the date, she inquires about his past dating life, so he confesses that he had never fallen in love and that she was his first love. Hearing this, she makes up her mind to stop toying with his feelings. As she approaches him to reveal her real identity, he suddenly pulls her up and spins her around in happiness, making her unable to reveal the truth. Confused about how to come out with the truth, she goes to her friend for advice. So, the friend decides to set the brother up with some hot girls in order to make him cheat, which would be enough for her to request a breakup without revealing the truth. So, that night, the friend invites him to a hangout with beautiful girls to make him fall for their trap. Then, she texts him using the gifted phone to ask about his whereabouts, expecting he would lie, but to their shock, he responds with the truth. Unable to believe this, they text him to leave the hangout, and he obeys without protest. While outside, he texts her requesting a meetup, so she quickly wears the blonde wig and uniform to meet him. He hugs her and tries to kiss her, but she pushes him away and claims it's improper to kiss in public. He accepts her excuse and suddenly gives her a spare key to his new apartment. He claims he would be moving out of his parents' house, so she was free to pay him a visit at his new house. Her stepbrother ends up moving out of the house in order to accommodate his new girlfriend. Unknown to him, the girlfriend is actually his sister in disguise. Meanwhile, Minato begins to feel guilty for playing an expensive prank on her stepbrother, even causing him to move out of the house. Determined to put an end to the game and pretense, she dresses up in her usual uniform and blonde wig, and goes to visit him at his new apartment. While inside, he tries to hug her, but she dodges it and announces that she has something important to reveal to him. She claims that her parents had been transferred to South America, so she had no choice but to relocate with them. She requests to break up, but he insists on a long-distance relationship. When she refuses, he breaks down in tears and gives her a farewell hug. Seeing his broken state, she begins to feel guilty about her actions and even gets distracted in class. Her former classmate notices this and asks if she's okay, so she breaks down in tears and confesses that she felt bad about toying with her brother's heart. Seeing her in tears, he suddenly hugs her and promises to wait until she gives him a response. 3 months later, she decides to give him a chance, so they began dating. But one day, she comes across her brother's friend, who tells her that her brother had cut off contact with everyone and was living in solitude after breaking up with his girlfriend. Worried about him, she goes to check up on him, but he tells her to leave him alone. That night, her boyfriend calls her to make a reservation for her anniversary, but she declines the invite and continues to worry about her brother. She wonders if he had fallen for her or her disguised version. The next day, she breaks up with her boyfriend and begs her friend to do her makeup. Then, she goes to meet her stepbrother again. He's extremely happy to see her and tries to kiss her, but she evades his kiss and promises to visit him again. With her sudden reappearance, he gets out of depression, so they begin to go on multiple dates. One day, she suddenly asks who he knew that looked a lot like her. But upon hearing the question, he becomes displeased and reveals that he doesn't like to talk about the person. Seeing his displeased expression, she becomes sad and begins to wonder why he didn't like her as his sister. One day, while on a date with him, her ex-boyfriend catches her with him, but decides to stay silent. After a few days, he sees her on campus and decides to escort her home. Her mother catches them together in front of the house and invites him to have dinner with them. While discussing over dinner, he suddenly mentions that he had seen her stepbrother on a date with a blonde girl. Minato is shocked to hear this and wonders if he knew her secret. Meanwhile, the stepbrother calls him out for a discussion and warns him never to bring up his girlfriend in a discussion. Minato, on the other hand, continues to panic. As soon as she hears a sound from their direction, she immediately rushes over to check on the situation. She's shocked to see her brother choking him on the wall, so she separates the fight. Later that night, she comes out clean to her ex-boyfriend and explains the entire situation to him. He promises to keep her secret, but tells her that he would feel disgusted with himself if he ever found out that his sister did something similar to him. He refuses to support her and leaves. Upon hearing this, she immediately comes back to her senses and realizes that her actions are disgusting. Meanwhile, her stepbrother spends the entire night staring at a photo of her and finally makes up his mind. The next day, as soon as they meet, he suddenly asks for a breakup. When she requests a reason behind his decision, he begins to confess that the more he stares at her smiling face, the more he becomes confused. He reveals that he has been using her as a substitute because she looks a lot like his true love. He refuses to reveal the identity of his true love, but insists that they look alike. Minato reveals this to her best friend, so they begin to think about the identity of his true love. After a few days, her stepbrother returns to living in the family house, and like before, he continues to give her the cold shoulder. A few days later, Minato meets up with her ex-boyfriend again, and they decide to go on a castle trip in another state. As soon as the stepbrother learns about this from his mother, he spends the entire day in bed, depressed and in deep thought. After an entire day of exploring castles, Minato decides to return home, but her ex-boyfriend suddenly informs her that he has booked a hotel room for an overnight stay. He convinces her to stay and books a single room for both of them. Seeing this, she changes her mind and decides to catch the last train home, but he threatens to reveal the truth to her brother if she leaves. Seeing that she would do anything to keep the truth a secret, he gives her the option to either sleep with him or risk getting the truth exposed. Left with no choice, she decides to sleep with him. As soon as she makes her decision, he reveals that he was only testing to see how far she would go for her brother. Her decision made him realize that she loved her brother, which means she had no place for him in her heart. After coming to this conclusion, he makes up his mind to stop chasing after her love. He bids farewell to her and leaves the hotel room in tears. Meanwhile, as the stepbrother eats dinner with his parents, his mother casually mentions that Minato owns 2 phones. He's shocked to hear this and wonders why she would be using 2 phones. After the dinner, the mother receives a text from Minato saying she would be staying overnight at a hotel. When he hears this, his expression immediately changes. That night, as he walks over to his room, he continues to ponder her reason for owning 2 phones. As he thinks deeply about it, he begins to piece things together and suspects that his sister had been posing as someone else in order to become his girlfriend. To confirm this, he dials his girlfriend's phone number and is shocked to hear the ringtone from his sister's room. Meanwhile, the next day, Minato makes up her mind to come clean to her brother and put an end to all the lies. As she walks out of the train station, she suddenly bumps into a stranger and falls to the ground. However, she's shocked to see that her brother is the stranger. And the most shocking part was that he was holding the phone he had gifted her. Realizing that he knows the truth, she reveals the reason for her action and apologizes to him. But instead of responding, he suddenly apologizes instead. He begins a lengthy confession, explaining that he had been happy when his father married her mother, as it meant he would spend more time with her. But as they grew older, his brotherly love turned into genuine affection for her, and once he realized how bad it was, he began chasing different girls in order to distract himself from her. But nothing worked. So, when he found someone who resembled her, he decided to use that person as a substitute. He also reveals that he had gotten jealous when he saw her ex-boyfriend escorting her home. He also realized it was hurtful to use someone else as a substitute for his sister, so he decided to break up with the blonde girlfriend. After confessing, he takes her to see the aquarium. There, he suddenly kisses her and asks her to be his girlfriend, to which she happily agrees.
Everything begins with a woman who nostalgically remembers her childhood. Her name is Aesoon, and she had a very hard life. Her mother was very poor, and her father had passed away a long time ago. So her mother had to work hard to feed all her children. She fought to prevent her eldest daughter from going through the same situation. However, she died at the young age of 25. So Aesoon, although she wanted to keep studying to become a great poet, had to help her stepfather work to support her siblings, with the promise that when she grew older, he would pay for her education. During that time, a sweet boy named Yang Guan always helped her sell her cabbages and brought her food whenever he could, hoping that one day she would return his affection. He came from one of the best families in Jeju, so his family didn't like that he was involved with such a poor girl. Time passes, and her stepfather marries a new woman, who doesn't want the girl living with them. That's when she finds out that all her stepfather's promises were lies. He wouldn't pay for her education. Instead, he wanted her to go to Seoul to work in a factory and send them money, which she refused to do. Later, she escapes with Yang Guan, taking things from her stepfather's wife and the boy's grandmother, and they head to Seoul on a boat. When they arrive, they go to a hotel where the owner, after offering them several things for free, including alcohol, waits for them to fall asleep so she can steal all their belongings. But the kids are not naive. They wait for the owner to fall asleep and recover their things. Later, they're caught by the police. Since they don't have IDs, the officers call Yang Guan's mother, who picks them up and takes them back to Jeju. There, the woman convinces the protagonist not to marry her son, as they want him to become a professional runner. So, with all the pain in her heart, she tells him she'll never marry him. Time goes on, and Aesoon receives a marriage proposal from someone much older with 2 children, but who has enough money to send her to university and live in Seoul. Even though she doesn't love him, It would be the life she always dreamed of. Meanwhile, Yang Guan is on a boat headed to an athletic competition. But he's heartbroken. She rethinks everything and decides that nothing is worth it without love. She runs to the dock, but the ship has already left. What she didn't expect was for the boy to jump off the boat and swim back to shore. They got married, and a few months later, had a beautiful baby girl. Since the girl was the first granddaughter, her grandmother wanted her to start training to become a henyo, which is what women who dive to collect seaweed and oysters are called. Asun didn't want that, as her own mother had died because of this lifestyle. Spending so much time underwater had ruined her lungs, so her husband decided to leave the house with his wife and daughter. Yang Guan always worked hard to provide for his family. He even worked for the man Asun was supposed to marry, enduring his abuse out of jealousy. But when she found out, she intervened for his sake, and he had to quit. With no job and Asun pregnant, they had no choice but to ask her grandmother for money. But the old woman gave it to them as a gift, because long ago, Asun's mother had asked her to look after her daughter when she was gone. With that money, they bought a fishing boat, and soon went from renting a small room to living in the house that once belonged to Asun's mother. Time passed, and the family lived peacefully, until a powerful typhoon hit the island. Their eldest daughter, Yang Gum-myong, went out riding her bike. When Asun noticed, she ran after her, leaving the two younger children at home. But when she returned, they were gone. They searched for hours and found only Yang Eun-myong. Later, they found the boy drowned. They tried to move on for the sake of their other two children. With the support of the whole island, even the stepmother brought food and helped feed the kids. Years later, Gum-myong was accepted into a university in Seoul. Over time, Asun became the head of the island, something she had dreamed of since she was a girl. She celebrated in honor of this achievement. In a scene change, we see Gum-myong tutoring a girl in English. The girl's mother tries to persuade Gum-myong to take her daughter's entrance exam in her place because they look alike. That's why she was hired. But Gum-myong refuses, as that's not how she was raised. She takes her pay and leaves. Then she is stopped by a police officer who accuses her of stealing money and a diamond ring. She returns the money but never took the ring. They take her to the police station, but they find nothing on her. They suspect she hid the ring somewhere else. Meanwhile, the woman confesses at home that she had to lie because she was afraid Gum-myong would reveal she had offered money to cheat on the exam. The maid overhears this, sneaks into her room, takes the ring, and threatens to throw it away if the woman calls the police to admit her lie. So, the woman has no choice but to apologize. Meanwhile, Gum-myong's father waits near her university. He had been rewarded with a free trip to Seoul for saving a woman from drowning, and used the opportunity to see his daughter. That night, she arrives and finds him sitting. She asks how long he's been there, but he says nothing and takes her to a restaurant. There, he finds out she was offered a scholarship to study in Japan, but declined because she couldn't afford the extra expenses. In another scene, Asun has bought a restaurant, the same one where she once had a date with the man she almost married, but her joy doesn't last long. She finds out a teacher at her daughter's university wants to take out a loan to help her go to Japan. Asun gets jealous and frustrated for not being the one to support her, especially now that her daughter lost her scholarship. So, without hesitation, she sells her house to help her. After some time, the girl lived in a small apartment in a somewhat dangerous neighborhood, where the landlord was quite kind to her. Meanwhile, Asun thinks her son is hanging out with a friend who is a bad influence. Still, she tries to handle it gently, bringing him games and apples. But his father doesn't think the same and bursts into the room. That's when they realize it's not his friend. It's Bu Yeon-suk, the daughter of the man Asun was supposed to marry. And now she is dating their son. That night, Gum-myong goes to the university bulletin board looking for a job, so she won't have to ask her parents for money. There, she runs into the ex-boyfriend of her landlord's daughter, Park Chung-seop, who helps her get a job at a movie theater. The next night, already working, she starts selling tickets when suddenly her boyfriend shows up. His name is Young Beom, a soldier who returned early from his military service just to see her. After her shift, they go straight to her home. But when he sees how run down the neighborhood is, he asks her to move into his, which upsets her. She knows she doesn't have enough money. The next night, the whole cinema staff goes out for dinner, and since Park Chung-seop is there, she's sent to take something to the basement where he stays. At that moment, his ex-girlfriend arrives and yells at him for being poor and not being able to afford a nicer restaurant. Just then, the phone rings, and as he goes to answer it, he sees Gyum-myung hiding and thinks she is his new girlfriend. In another scene, it's Yongbyom's birthday, so Gyum-myung goes to his house to visit. What she doesn't expect is to find his mother, who gets upset because the girl doesn't know how to serve food and even has a copy of the house key. The only one happy was the boy, but the woman forbids her from returning, so Gyum-myung storms out. That night she returns to work and notices a woman talking to customers. The owners suspect she is scalping tickets since she always shows up at premieres, but that's not the case. She's Chung Se-op's mother, and she's an artist. She comes to see the paintings displayed during the premieres. Because of this, her boss gives her free movie tickets, saying that without her son, the cinema would have gone under long ago. Since Gyum-myung is the one who noticed the truth, her friend is very grateful. He even says his mother had never seen a movie in a theater before. As a thank you, the woman gives Gyum-myung many English literature books, the subject she's studying. When she gets home, her mother calls her right away. She's had many nightmares and asks her daughter to never come home so late again, since apparently Gyum-myung never told her she had a job. That night, Ae-soon visits her grandmother's house to honor the anniversary of her father's death. While listening to the radio, they hear news of a child kidnapping. This triggers a memory in her uncle. Once, when Ae-soon went to gather firewood with her sister, she chased a dragonfly and met a woman who claimed she had an injured leg. The woman asked Ae-soon to go to a nearby village store to get change. Ae-soon did, and when she came back, the woman gave her more money to get more change. Just as Ae-soon was nearing a truck, her mother found her, took the money, thinking it was cursed, and asked her to describe the woman. Turns out the woman was a child kidnapper, but her mother never told her to avoid scaring her. A few days later, the same woman went to the market, and Ae-soon's mother beat her up. Back then, it seemed like a coincidence. But now, as a mother, Ae-soon understands that instinct can tell when something's wrong. That's exactly why Ae-soon decides to visit her daughter. She senses something's off. When she arrives, she finds her daughter unconscious and breaks down the landlord's door to ask for help. The girl had inhaled carbon monoxide. Although she calls an ambulance, she knows it'll take time since cars can't access the area. Fortunately, Chung Se-op is there and carries her daughter to the paramedics quickly. At the hospital, her daughter is treated. She's in pain but conscious. Then Yongbyom arrives, extremely worried. Through tears, he asks her to marry him. She's still unsure because she knows his mother dislikes her. Ae-soon overhears everything and wonders how anyone could dislike her daughter. Later, the girl accepts his proposal, and her parents travel to meet Yongbyom's family. Not only do they arrive late, but his mother also insults Gyum-myung. Ae-soon bites her tongue to avoid saying something inappropriate, but it's hard. When they go to choose wedding dresses, the old woman refuses to let Ae-soon choose a pink one, claiming it makes her look younger than the bride's mother. Eventually, Ae-soon decides to talk to her alone. The woman takes the opportunity to say her son shouldn't marry someone so poor and asks Ae-soon to help stop the wedding. Ae-soon walks away, but not before telling her she'll only end up hurting her own son. Later, the old woman confronts the girl after finding out Yongbyom plans to live alone with her. Gyum-myung then realizes what she said to her mother and breaks off the engagement. She can't tolerate anyone making her mom feel small. In time, she decides to stop seeing Yongbyom altogether. They know they'll only keep hurting each other, knowing they can never truly be together. They hug one last time. A year goes by, and she's still heartbroken. She goes to her parents' house for a while. We learn she now works at a company and is doing well, but she took time off to heal. Her parents are happy to have her around. They cook all her favorite dishes and try to keep her from thinking too much about her ex. One early morning, her father wakes her up to go out on the boat and watch the sunrise. That's the moment when she finally begins to heal. When she returns home, she feels better. Later, we learn that her brother is serving in the military. He made that decision to get away from his girlfriend's brothers, who used to beat him up, and also to make his family proud. But time flies, and soon enough, he's back. His parents are overjoyed, but he brings a surprise. He got his girlfriend pregnant. Since she wasn't treated well at her home, he took her in to live with his parents. The crisis hit, and many companies went bankrupt. That's why it became very difficult to keep a job for long. Even the movie theater where she had worked eventually went under. However, The same people continued running it. One day, Gum-myung decided to go to the theater, and by chance, she ran into Chung Se-op. Neither of them noticed the other until she was already on the bus. So, she ran after it until she managed to get on. He invited her to eat and confessed that he had always liked her. And soon after, they started a beautiful relationship. One day, they traveled to Jeju to meet her parents and get their blessing. But it wasn't as easy as they thought. Her father pretended to feel dizzy while fishing on the boat, although he liked how much Chung Se-op cared for her. In time, they got married in a lovely ceremony attended by family and friends, including the elderly couple who were once her parents' landlords. But after the wedding, everything came crashing down. Yoon-myung ended up in jail. The friend his parents had always forbidden him from seeing accused him of theft. Apparently, they had opened a pawn shop, hoping to get rich and gain the attention of their parents. Since childhood, Yoon-myung had felt overlooked by his parents and believed his sister was always their priority. To get him released, they needed to raise a large sum of money. Ae-soon went to the friend's mother's house to try and get her to tell her son's whereabouts. A fight broke out, and Ae-soon ended up with a TV and a gold ring to sell, but it still wasn't enough. So Yang Gwan had no choice but to sell his fishing boat. When Eun-myung was finally released, he looked for work, but because people saw him as an ex-convict, no one would hire him. He managed to sell rice cakes and jellies, though he didn't enjoy it. Every time someone bought from him, they'd tell him to be kind to his father, as if everyone was scolding him. And thanks to his father, he eventually landed a better job, where he still got scolded, but at least the pay was good. In a change of scene, we see that now Gum-myung is the one deciding to sell something. This worries her family. To make matters worse, Eun-myung has injured his fingers since he works carrying ice and doesn't wear protective gloves. Because of all this, Yang Gwan makes a bold decision. He sells the cabbage field to buy a building and turn it into a restaurant. The only issue is that the building was far from their village, so it was hard to attract customers. Later, they find out the cabbage field will be turned into a hotel, something they didn't know beforehand. When they made the deal, they were told it would become a hospital with a golf course. This upset their children deeply. After an argument with her mother,
진짜 한 번 좀 쨍할 날도 없는 살림살이에.
Gyeom-myung leaves and places a sonogram photo of the baby she's expecting in the refrigerator. Months pass, and Gyeom-myung is now in labor, but it's a complicated delivery, as the baby isn't moving despite the dilation. Despite all the problems, she manages to give birth. Her parents arrive, as always, to feed her and take care of her. When Ae-soon returns home, they come up with an idea. Since they believe no one will visit their restaurant, they decide to start making home deliveries. It turns out to be a great idea, as orders start flooding in. Then we find out her husband has a new dream, to be a rich grandfather. So, he calls in a favor from the woman he saved long ago, now a very famous person. She stars in a commercial recommending their food. Over time, everything gets better. The restaurant is thriving, the rest of the building's units are rented, and they're earning more money. But life isn't always happy. Yang Gwan is diagnosed with cancer, and even with treatment, his survival isn't guaranteed. Everyone is devastated. At least he had the chance to say goodbye to his wife and children. He lived long enough to see Ae-soon finally become the poet she always wanted to be. He asked his daughter to stop fighting with her mother and to take care of her when he's gone. It didn't take long before the man with a heart of steel left this world. Life moved on. In the present, Ae-soon works as a teacher at a nursing home, teaching those who never learned to read and write. She now lives in a house her daughter bought for her. Ae-soon lived a very hard life, but she never gave up. Over time, she achieved what she wanted and learned to be happy with what little she had.